Greetings, everyone. My name is Liz Kinchen, and I have written this book, Light in Bandaged Places, Healing in the Wake of Young Betrayal. First of all, I want to thank Boulder Bookstore for hosting this video. And I absolutely love the Boulder Bookstore. Every time I walk in there, I feel like I could stay there for days and weeks. The energy there is just so good. So thank you. So there are some questions that I'm going to address that the folks at the bookstore have given me to respond to. So the first one is, can I give a very brief synopsis of my book? My book is a memoir, and it is about a 5-year relationship that I had as a young teenager, really from ages 14 to 18, with one of my teachers. So it's the story of that relationship, how it came about. And primarily, it's about how it impacted the later years of my life. At the time it was happening, I didn't think anything was particularly harmful to me. This was the 1970s. But as a young adult, I had all kinds of problems with relationships. I wasn't really present. My emotions were not accessible to me. I can go into more detail about that. But in terms of a synopsis, I struggled a lot in my marriage. And it took a particular event to kind of shake things up for me and help me understand how what had happened to me was a primary source of what was really interfering with my ability to be in healthy relationships. And the book is about the process that I went through for healing from these events and experiences of my young life. So, what inspired me to write the book? Um, I began writing this book about 20 years ago, actually. And what made me begin writing about my life and about these early years was there was this event that I mentioned before that made me realize the harm that had been done to me. And I went into therapy, and my therapist suggested that writing might be a really helpful way for me to recall some memories that were just covered over, just lost to my consciousness, to my conscious mind. But writing really helped stir things and help me recall things from the past. As a young adult, I kept a journal constantly. I have boxes of journals from those years where I was really trying to figure things out. So I had all of these sort of random, disparate writings. And about, I don't know, 7 or so years ago, I looked at the arc of those writings, from from my childhood, from this relationship with my teacher, to how that impacted my life, to how I healed from it. And I thought that there's a story here that could be useful for somebody else. It's a story, it's a book that I wish I had had when I was struggling and so confused. So I have written it and put it in the world in the spirit of wanting to be helpful, potentially, to other people who have experienced a similar kind of trauma that I did, or really, there are many kinds of traumas that cause us to shut down emotionally. And I think the process I went through could be interesting and helpful for others. And you're asking, did I keep a journal during this time of trauma in my life, or did I rely on my memories and the memories of others while writing the book? So at the time when I was a teenager, if I kept a diary or a journal, I have memories of having a diary, but they're long lost. It was many years ago, and in moves over the years, I just don't have those, which is why working with a therapist who was a trauma specialist really helped me use writing to uncover some memories that had been lost. Additionally, once I embarked on this process of healing, I did talk with other people, with friends of mine who were present during those years in middle school and high school, my sisters. So I helped, I sought them to help me put the pieces together as much as I could. I also did research into the times, what was happening in the world at that time, what was going on, and all of these things helped jog uh, long lost memories of what had happened. You're asking, was my experience of writing my story painful or cathartic? I think it was a little bit of both of those things. Um, it was a remarkable tool that really helped me. There's something about the process of writing that I'm sure neuroscientists, have things to say about what that does with the brain and the nervous system. But for me, it really was a tool that helped uncover memories and also make connections between things. So I would say it was more of that than it was a purely cathartic experience. Although it felt good, it did feel good to put this in writing. And parts of it were painful to write, particularly the parts where I saw how I was struggling so much in my marriage. We were struggling, my husband and I, in our marriage. And just, I didn't know what was wrong. I thought there was something really, really wrong with me, that I was incapable of being in a loving, emotionally connected relationship with another adult. I seemed to not know how to do that. And that was really painful for me to write about that and to write about the ways that I was hurtful to him and to myself. What was something that helped me to heal from the abuse I experienced? So there were many things. There was this triggering event, and I'll tell you. In fact, I'm going to read about that event, describing what kind of opened the door to my early awareness that actually something harmful had happened to me back then. I went into therapy, as I said, and I found a wonderful, wonderful, gentle, kind, loving woman who was a specialist in abuse and trauma. And I worked with her for 10 years steadily. And in addition to that work, my husband was very supportive and loyal, really stood by through some difficult, trying years in our marriage. And I had some friends that I was able to talk about this with. So a big part of, I think, what laid down trauma for me was, at the time, it was all a secret, right? I couldn't tell anybody about what was happening. And the circumstances of my childhood were such that even though I had two parents and we were five siblings, the dynamics in our household was one where I had a lot of independence, and my parents, I guess, trusted me and felt that they didn't need to pay close attention to what I was doing, or really what I was feeling or going through, or who I was. So there was an inattentiveness, I would say, to my emotional self, which probably made me a good target for an older man in a position of power to take advantage of the trust of a naive girl. What else helped me heal? So I was saying how friends were helping me because as an adult, I could talk about this, which was something I could not really do at the time. And that was healing to be able to talk about it with another person, with friends who are caring and loving and not judging. Really important. A huge piece for me also in my healing was when I became a parent. I really had no idea until I became a mother what true, deep, unconditional love felt like. I thought I knew how to love in a generic sense. Of course I did. But that profound, like almost visceral kind of love that comes with parenting for me was hugely helpful because it showed me what was possible, what is possible, that kind of love in relationships. Another thing that was really helpful to me was I had, from my early years, interest in spirituality, and I had quite a journey through different traditions. But I became a meditator when I was in college and continued to do that in a variety of styles over the decades since college. And in particularly, my study and practice of Buddhism has been tremendously helpful. It is helpful because I really benefited from the invitational quality of Buddhism. It's not dogmatic. And it's really about, here are some teachings, try them out, see what works, what doesn't work, see what resonates. So for me, that was really helpful, that approach to it. Also, the emphasis on love and compassion in Buddhism, very helpful to me. And in particular, I think that the biggest healing aspect of Buddhism for me was the teaching of turning towards what's hard instead of pushing it away, denying, pretending, which is what I had done, most of my life. So that process of looking at what's hard and calling on compassion and kindness towards oneself was really very healing for me. You're asking, what are a couple of books that I've read recently that I have really loved? Okay. I read incessantly, but I will say that this book, Tattoos on the Heart by Gregory Boyle, just makes my heart sing. Gregory Boyle is a priest who works in LA with gang members. And he has this very unorthodox, transformational way of working with these really, really hurt human beings who nobody wants around and nobody wants to love. And he loves them no matter what. So it's not to say he doesn't have boundaries and doesn't accept behavior that's harmful, but he holds a space of love and acceptance for these gang members, and it changes their lives. So, beautiful book. Another wonderful book is The Book of Joy by the Dalai Lama and the late Desmond Tutu. It's a book full of the underlying shared principles, spiritual principles between these two spiritual leaders' practices, Christianity and Buddhism. Both of them are in my spiritual history and path. And the two of them, there are conversations between the two of them, and they just have so much joy and ease, and you can really sense the love that these two men share for each other. So it's a delightful and inspiring book. And I guess I would add to that list in terms of memoir. My favorite memoir of all time, I recently reread it, is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. Just a gorgeous, beautifully written memoir, important story. I actually listened to it, and she narrates it, and it was mesmerizing and just beautiful, gorgeous book. So those are a few of the books that I've been reading that I love. So you're asking, is there anything else I want you to know about my book? I think I would like to say a couple things about the cover and the title. So the title, Light in Bandaged Places, comes from a poem by Rumi, where he says, don't look away. Keep your eye on the bandaged places. That's where the light enters you. And the design of the cover with these lines of gold, there is this ancient Japanese art called kintsugi, which is where broken pottery pieces are glued together and mended by filling the cracks with gold. And this is an art form where the thinking is that the pottery is made actually more beautiful because it was broken, and the cracks have been mended with gold, and the resulting piece is something that represents resilience and healing and something made more whole than even it was before. So those are the behind the title and the cover design. Can I read you a short passage? I would love to do that. I'm going to set it up for you. So this is the event that I mentioned that really opened my eyes, that, maybe all the struggle I was having in relationships and in my marriage and feeling okay about myself stemmed from what happened years ago. So I had taken a job where I was required to take a day-long training program in different kinds of abuse, elder abuse, child abuse, different things like that. So I was attending this workshop. This day-long workshop taught us how to watch for signs of child abuse among volunteers and the legal requirements for staff members should we discover these situations. More than one adult must be in a classroom or an automobile with children and teens. Office and classroom doors must have windows, and a young child must be escorted to the bathroom by 2 teachers. During the workshop, we watched a video with vignettes depicting various kinds of abuse. A teenage boy stole money from his disabled grandmother's purse. A minister had an affair with one of his parishioners. A male priest interacted with a teenage boy who came to him for counseling. This last video showed the tall, handsome priest welcome a boy of 15 into his office. The priest listened intently and sensitively to the boy's struggles and his sadness over recently losing his father. He was a shy but earnest teenager, searching for guidance and a new role model. The priest invited the boy to come back for more conversation anytime he wanted. After a few visits, the man moved to sit on the couch with the boy, talked to him about growing up, and encouraged him to relax and be more at ease. This man treated the vulnerable boy like a friend. The boy began to trust him and looked forward to their visits together. All my senses were alert. My heart beat faster and my mouth was dry. Something was happening in that movie. Something was happening in me, something subtle yet unmistakably familiar. Tendrils of dread curled into my gut. During one scene, when the boy visited his office, the handsome priest produced a cold beer from his mini fridge and poured them each a glass to enjoy while they chatted. He was friendly, and the conversation turned to the boy's concerns about his relationship with his girlfriend. I may have something to help you out in that area, the priest reassured. It's natural for kids to be a little anxious about sex. Maybe all they need is to understand it a little bit more. Not many people want to talk to kids about sex. I think I can help. With that, he reached into a desk drawer, pulled out a DVD, and popped it into his video player. Together, they watched porn, sitting there on a couch with their cold beers. With each flash of erotic scenes, my mind said, that's probably not his job to do. He's gone too far now. The priest should not be speaking to this boy about sex, and probably not serving him beer. The smoky dread tendrils moved up around my heart, and suddenly I felt recognition. A network of neurons activated inside me and escalated to full voltage. This man was seducing the boy. He was not just showing him a video about sex, not just offering friendship. Now I saw the whole long cultivation process. He had been kind and gentle, and all along he wanted sex. He had lured him in. He seemed so trustworthy, thoughtful, and sweet. He took care of the boy, paid attention to him, and made him feel special. I was lured in by him. I wanted to trust him. As I watched, part of me did trust him, and part of me felt punched in the gut. The movie then cut to this boy several years later, looking older and sadder. The boy described how eventually, bit by bit, over time, the kind priest began a sexual relationship with him, and all the while being gentle, loving, and attentive to him. Eventually, I knew something was not right, but it took a really long time to find the strength to end things with him. The young man sounded despondent. He told me he loved me, he said, his eyes speaking directly to me. As I watched this video, I re-experienced all the complex emotions from my years with my teacher. I experienced myself in the movie. I recognized Mark. I felt Mark as I watched the man in the video. They called this abuse. Never in all the years with Mark and after had I ever considered our relationship abusive. Yes, I knew it was unorthodox, but I never recognized the planning, manipulation, and slow cultivation of setting the trap as I experienced while watching this little vignette. I saw it from an adult perspective, from the perspective of a parent. I experienced a sense of protection for this boy in the video that I had never experienced on my own behalf. Now I had outrage at the exploitation of his innocence and trust. The young man continued, I was so mixed up. I didn't understand what love meant or what to expect from a relationship. After it ended, I was confused about my sexuality. I felt worthless, and as I think back on it, used. The more I sat with my visceral experience of watching this video, the more connections I made to the abusive nature of my lucky relationship with Mark. I thought about everything I had read and heard about the impact of child abuse, and now began to reflect on my adult relationships, especially my marriage. I knew something big had just happened. So that began my journey into healing. And I am here today someone asked me recently if I felt healed. And my response to that is yes, I'm a very different person today than I was 10, 15, 20, 25 or more years ago. Very different. I have access to my emotions. I know how to show compassion to myself and to other people. I have ease with myself. I have more empathy. I have more joy in life. So, in that regard, I am healed. And I will say that healing is a process. It's really a lifelong process. And I sometimes get triggered, and um, I don't tend to spiral down in uh, a spiral of lack of self-worth and like I used to. Um, so I come back from being triggered much more quickly than I ever used to, and I'm triggered less often. But healing is a lifelong process. Um, I am so grateful for my experience of healing, and for, in particular, the role that therapy and mindfulness and Buddhist teachings have played in my life. That it inspired me to take my lifetime of meditation and get all the training I could get and study everything I could study about these teachings so that I could offer them to other people, which I now do in the spirit of wanting to help people. That comes from my experience of being helped so much along the way. So that's my book, Light and Bandaged Places. Thank you again to Boulder Bookstore, and thank you for listening. Take good care.